Hello, boys and girls. This is Miss Turner. I'm going to be going over the flow of energy through the food web with you today. So let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully you've had a chance to do our virtual field trip, watch some videos, and read some books about the ecosystem so far. So let's go ahead and look at some of the important vocabulary words that we will be seeing throughout a lot of these lessons that we're doing in this unit. Okay? So first of all, you might be asking yourself, what is an ecosystem? Well, an ecosystem is all of the living and non-living things that interact in one place. So another word for living is biotic. The biotic things in an ecosystem could include like plants, animals, and even bacteria. Bacteria is alive too. Abiotic things, or things that aren't alive, include air, water, and soil. So looking over at our photo here of an underwater ecosystem, we see a few things that are living and also non-living. So the non-living abiotic things would be like the water or the sun in the upper corner. And our biotic things would be the plants and the fish that we see in this photo. That takes us into different types of ecosystems. One of the types of ecosystems is a terrestrial ecosystem. Those are ecosystems that are on land, so those would be like grasslands, forests, savannas, anything with the ground. So we can see some examples of those ecosystems over here. And the opposite of terrestrial ecosystems would be aquatic. So we have a few examples in our photos of aquatic ecosystems. Those are ecosystems that consist of water, so like oceans, ponds, rivers, saltwater or freshwater bodies of water. So in the picture on the right with the sun setting, we see an example of a saltwater ecosystem. That's probably like the ocean or a gulf. Over on the left, we see a pond. Maybe that feeds out to like a small river, a creek, a stream. Any of those bodies of water would be freshwater ecosystems. So I see a few biotic features in that photo, including the trees, the grass, some shrubs. All of those things would be considered biotic or living things in that ecosystem. So our real topic in this unit is the food chain. So sometimes we hear the food chain or we hear the food web. So I'm going to show you in just a minute the little difference between both of those words. But a food chain is the series of plants and animals in which each organism is a source of food for the next. So an organism is something that's living. In this food chain, we see the plankton that starts at the top. That's like a plant, which is then eaten by zooplankton, the small animal. And then you'll follow the arrow down to see fish larvae. Continue to follow the arrow, a small fish, and then that is consumed by the predator, which is that shark at the bottom. So normally we see pictures of the food chain going up. This food chain is going down progressively. So we just follow the arrows. A food web is a little bit different. So those are the plants and animals that are consumed by multiple organisms. The flow of energy can go in many different directions. So we'll see the plants on the bottom of this picture here. There's a tree, looks like some like cattails, and a shrub. So we'll follow the arrows up from those plants on the bottom to get to animals like the giraffe or the gazelle. Those are animals that eat the plants on the bottom. Then, if you continue to follow the arrow up, it shows how energy goes from the giraffe to its predator, which would be the lion. So the lion makes the giraffe its prey or food, and the energy goes from the giraffe to the lion. You'll notice too that when the energy transfers from the plant to I believe that's probably a gazelle on the right, then to the jaguar transfers its energy to the vulture. And that, it may not make too much sense yet, but the vulture has a very important job in this ecosystem. So it doesn't really make sense for the vulture to eat a bigger animal like the jaguar, but we'll see in a few slides what important job that has. Producers are plants that are able to use light energy from the sun to produce food from carbon dioxide in the air and water. So plants are living things. They need food, water, and air just like we do. And they make their own food. That's their difference. So any of the plants would be considered producers. And one trick to remember that is to remember that producers and plants both start with the letter P. So producers can include some of the items that are here in the photos, or even things like orange trees or cranberries, things that grow in the ground. Okay, so producers help our consumers by providing them with food. Consumers are animals that cannot make their own food. We see a variety of animals over here in this photo, and they all have a special job in each of their own ecosystems. So these animals may not live in the same ecosystem, but they are all consumers. There are many different types and levels of consumers, and we're going to go to the next slide and take a look at what they might be. So in this slide, we see kind of like a pyramid where our producers, remember those are the plants, are on the bottom. And then they're showing arrows that go to the two animals that are kind of in the middle of our triangle. So the animal on the left kind of, I think it's a quail, and then the animal on the right is a rabbit. So we have our primary consumers, that would be the quail and the rabbit in this photo. They are herbivores. So herbivores are animals that eat only plants. They're the primary consumers that eat the plants. Secondary consumers, which is in this photo, the fox, can be omnivores. So they can be animals that eat plants and animals, or they could be carnivores, animals that eat only meat or other animals. This photo doesn't show a tertiary consumer, but that would be the third level. So for instance, if another animal were to eat the fox and make the fox its prey, then they would be the tertiary consumer in this photo. So if we follow the arrows up, it looks like the rabbit would eat those berries, and then the fox would eat the rabbit. So the flow of energy goes from the berries to the rabbit, then to the fox. All right, decomposers. Here we are at that important slide that I talked about a little bit with that vulture and the jaguar previously. So decomposers are organisms that speed up the decaying process and then release the nutrients back into the food chain. So even though decomposers might seem kind of yucky, we would have a big mess without them. So decomposers would be like that vulture we saw, the worm. Here's a picture of some mushrooms, which are a type of fungus, and then bacteria, those little kind of bluish, purpley, worm-looking things here on our right. So all of these decomposers are responsible for breaking down like dead or decaying matter. So in our previous picture, we saw that vulture. The vulture, after the jaguar dies, takes care of its body and its decaying body. So that way we just don't have a bunch of dead animals or things like that laying around. So they're kind of like the cleanup crew, I like to think of them as. So all of our ecosystems, aquatic or terrestrial, need to have those decomposers in them, or else we might have a big mess on our hands. All right, the direction of energy, we've seen this before, but it's really important to notice the direction that the arrows are flowing in throughout these pictures or photos. So hopefully, like you have read or seen through this video, all of the energy begins with the sun. The sun provides energy for plants to grow and make their own food. Then animals eat those plants. So the energy is transferred. So in this picture, we see those kind of like green leaves on the bottom. They transfer energy to the little kind of shrimp-looking creature. They're the little pink guy. So after the shrimp eats the seaweed or the algae, the clownfish is a consumer that will eat the shrimp, or the clownfish also looks like it could eat maybe some of that lettuce. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be, but looks like a plant and an animal both. So it looks like the clownfish is an omnivore in this model, and then the clownfish is then consumed by that larger fish. So if another consumer eats that animal, in this case the clownfish, the energy flows from the prey, clownfish, to the predator, the larger fish, which is the secondary consumer. So we show the flow of energy with arrows that point in the direction that the energy flows. So in this picture, our energy flows from the little leaves to the shrimp, to the clownfish, to the larger fish, and then back down. So I think that once that energy leaves that blue fish at the top, it goes back down. So that must be the decomposer in this model. Our keystone species are incredibly important species of animals that are critical to the survival of the other species in their ecosystem. So you might have heard about a lot of people that are taking interest in bees right now. It's incredibly important to support the honeybees because they are responsible for pollinating our plants. So without these bees, our plants or our producers wouldn't really be able to survive. And without our producers, of course, we know we wouldn't have anything else in our food web. So people have taken a really great interest right now, which is awesome, in protecting the bees. They're not scary or dangerous. Of course, if you're allergic to bees, don't go close. But the bees are critical for the survival of many of our animals in the ecosystem, including humans. Another animal that's important and considered a keystone species is the beaver. So the beaver is important for a different reason than the bee. The beaver creates habitats. It creates its own ecosystem that animals thrive in by creating dams. These dams that are made of fallen trees or limbs contain the water into an area and create their own ecosystem in aquatic ecosystems. So without the beaver or without the bee, we would be in some trouble. So hopefully that you have enjoyed hearing a little bit more about these vocabulary words, and I'm looking forward to reading your Padlet responses and seeing all the kinds of great things that you came up with through your explore.orgs. I love that website. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I do. So I can't wait to see what you come up with. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you all soon. Thanks.